Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. It's a joy just to be with all of you, and always happy to remind you that the most important thing in life is the energy you have at the very center of your heart, the God Spirit right there. May each one of us live in this energy today and bring it forth each day. A couple of very nice things to report. First of all, our Kindness Month has really gone off to a very nice start, especially because of the newspaper advertisement. Through the advertisement, we've had over 500 kindness cards being distributed in the first week here in our local communities. That's terrific for us. Also, of course, additionally, there are the kind acts that each one of you are doing in your distribution of kindness cards. People want to be kind. Kindness is at the very center of our being. May we continue to assist each other in doing so. And then secondly, tonight, just a reminder, our new programming for Sunday night will be from 7 to 8:30. Tonight's program will be What is Light Body? I invite you to join us if you're able to do so. Let's begin. My dear friends, it continues to be a joy to join with you in these weekly teachings. It is clear that we are developing a sequence to our teachings as we proceed from one step to the next. This has been clearly apparent in our last 3 teachings, wherein we clearly taught that we are the love of God in human form, and then explain the 5 identity concepts that further explained it. A key identity concept from last week's teaching is that we are developing a spiritual personality. I have seen so many of you coming to understand this point as you have made that shift from understanding yourself simply as a limited human being to now fully understanding yourself as that eternal soul spirit with a spiritual personality. This has been quite an advancement for so many of us, learning to know who we are, just as Socrates advised us to do. So today, we will expand this understanding of ourselves as a spiritual personality. And the topic of today's teaching, which is entitled Soul Teams. Soul Teams. We will begin with a good common sense question, answer it with a wonderful spiritual response, and then develop in the response 5 soul teams that each of us has. Let's begin with a good common sense question. The question is, how do people come together in life? How do people unify? There are many answers to this question. People can unify as families, as communities, as countries, as religions, or as athletic teams. There are just so many ways in which people come together in life. All of these public ways, however, have an often fatal flaw. There is a fatal flaw in so many coming togethers. These ways are based pretty much on human personalities and human situations, which often have a temporary basis. For example, things are often good in families until perhaps one person begins to argue with another, and then eventually stops talking to the other. We see this not just with in-laws, but also in siblings, especially when money is involved. The same things happen in all other attempts at unifying, even in religious organizations. Things are good until they aren't. In fact, not only have the major religions of the world not unified, but often a member becomes shunned or not accepted due to a certain behavior such as transgender issues or gay rights. So it's a good question. It's a good question for us to ask. Is there a something? Is there a unifying something on which a more permanent and enduring awareness can occur? For such an answer, let us turn to the Hindu practice of yoga. Starting first with the definition of the word yoga, and then seeing where it fits into our spiritual personality, which will then enable us to understand our 5 soul teams. Let me repeat this. I want to start with a brief understanding of the word yoga, see how it fits into our human yet high spiritual personality, and then see how it develops for our 5 soul teams. Don't worry, we'll make this very clear in the teaching. First, a definition for the word yoga. The word yoga simply means to unite. To unite. Actually, it comes from a farming notion of unifying animals, oxen or horses, so that they might pull together. Notice the emphasis on the idea of uniting the animals so that they can pull together. An English equivalent of the Hindu word is the word yoke, not the Y-O-L-K of an egg, but rather the Y-O-K-E, which means a harness that fits over animals so that they can pull together. Again, notice the words to pull together. So let me now explain the word yoga, especially what it means for a spiritual personality, and then how it forms the basis of our 5 soul teams. Although I think you're getting the idea with the notion of pulling together. In a nutshell, what yoga does for an individual is to help the parts of their self to pull together. What yoga does for an individual is to help the parts of their self to pull together. Which parts? Which parts of yourself? It is easiest to explain which parts when we look at the way the Hindus look at a human being. And then we will show a clear parallel in our Western language. First, the Hindus see the human personality just as we do, although we simply use different words. Thus, the Hindus see what they call the Atman within the human being, A-T-M-A-N. The Atman is that part of their being that is connected with the Hindu word for God called the Brahman. The Atman is connected to the Brahman. So the human being has an Atman at their center, which is really the presence of the Brahman, the God spirit within them. I'll say that again. The human being has an Atman, a spiritual center, which is the presence of the Brahman, the God spirit within them. In our Western language, we would say the human being has their soul spirit at the very center of their being. And your soul spirit is the presence of the God spirit within you. Let me repeat this. We would just simply say that each human being has at their very center a soul spirit, an eternal soul spirit, which is that part of the God spirit that is in the individual. Now, what becomes important are two things. First, how do these things pull together? How do they yoke your soul spirit and your God spirit? Actually, there are two yokes, two ways of pulling together. Let me explain. The first one, obviously, is the relationship between the Atman and the Brahman, or in our language, the relationship between the soul spirit with your God spirit. This is the most important aspect of pulling together, and is primarily accomplished in our daily meditation or in our group meditations, as so many of you have found recently. You know the feeling. You know the feeling quite well. When you simply feel, when you just know that you are a part of that larger energy. You just know that you are created in the image and likeness of God. You have that euphoric experience many times, and you'll continue to experience it many, many, many times, hopefully daily in the future. But there is another yoking, a second yoking, another pulling together with the Atman. This pulling together concerns your Atman, your soul spirit, pulling together with your personality self. Let me repeat this. The second yoking is your Atman, your soul spirit, pulling together with your personality self. Regardless of whatever yoga you practice, regardless of how foundational the pulling together of the Atman with the Brahman is, what is so very important for each one of us is to understand, is to know how your soul spirit is yoked to your personality self. How your soul spirit is yoked to your personality self. And how our soul spirit and our personality self pull together as a team. How our soul spirit and our personality self pull together as a team to usher in the kingdom of God. With this introduction, we are now ready to explain the 5 soul teams of which we are members, with a focus on what kind of a teammate am I in these 5 teams. The first obvious soul team of which we are a member concerns our spiritual community of now creations, as well as any other spiritual group that you yourselves are participants in. In now creations, we so appreciate the many people such as you who come together consciously to share our spiritual principles and values. It's truly a joy to grow together with others in the energy of the Holy Spirit. What a joy, what a joy. And to share times of mutual inspiration. We clearly understand the importance of this yoking, of this pulling together with each other. We're doing that right now. We clearly understand why the Buddhists consider as a foundational aspect of their spiritual development the Sangha, the spiritual community. In fact, it's one of the 3 refuges of Buddhism. We clearly understand that many times when someone has said something or done something, but this is exactly what we needed to hear and provided an inspiration for us to do so. We clearly understand the daily stability that now creations provides for our daily spiritual growth. For twice a day, we are in programming. So now, two questions arise for us. First, what kind of a teammate have I been to now creations and its members? And the second question is, am I giving my best to our first soul team? You see, it's easy at times to be a recipient. It's real easy to be a recipient of spiritual energy. Yet quite another point to consider as to how I am contributing to my soul team's success. Just as we understand that we are the recipients of and the contributors to the universal flow of life, it is very important to realize that we are recipients of and contributors to our first soul team, our spiritual family of now creations. What kind of a teammate am I? It's an important question to consider. Let us now proceed to our second soul team. Our second soul team is easy enough to state, but it involves something that you will have to ponder more deeply, not just in today's teaching, but also throughout this next week, to see whether you fully understand it, and if so, how it might be helpful to you. Again, you'll know what's best for you. The second soul team concerns the yoking. It concerns the yoking, the pulling together of your soul spirit self with your personality self. Let's take the easy look at this relationship, then the deeper, richer pulling together. First, the easy look. Actually, the first easy look was not quite so easy, and perhaps one that you are still in the process of making, although many of you have done so. It concerns the shift you have made from seeing yourself primarily as that personality self to now understanding yourself as a soul spirit, which uses the personality self as the human vehicle of expression. I'll say that again. It's a big shift to no longer see yourself simply as a personality self, but as a soul spirit self, using your personality self as a vehicle of expression. As I said, many of you have made this shift and have found greater joy in your life. You have already found that the universal principles and values of your soul spirit are now guiding your personality self. And in so doing, you have found such a better way of living. So many of you have done this. You have said this. You're kinder, smarter, nicer, wiser. It's like your soul spirit has now yoked your personality self into a much greater vision. I know this is true for so many of you. And yet, there is still a problem. there is still the problem that we have to address. And again, I'm going to suggest to you just another way of looking at this union of your soul spirit and your personality self. While you have made remarkable progress in allowing your soul spirit to guide your personality self, herein lies perhaps a lingering problem. Again, listen carefully, and you decide what's best for yourself. The problem that remains is that your personality self is still the focal point of your life. Let me say it again. The problem that remains is that your personality self is still the focal point of your life. One more time. For those of you that really want to advance, you have to take a look at your life and ask yourself the question, is it true that while my personality self has been elevated, it is still the focal point of my life? While it is quite true that your soul spirit has bettered, has elevated your personality self, it's also true that oftentimes your personality self is still the focal point of your daily living. Over the past several months, especially through the works of Robert Monroe's Ultimate Journey and Jim Self's A Course in Mastering Alchemy, we have gleaned some additional facts that need to be considered. The primary new fact is that perhaps you need to change the focal point of your life from your personality self to the soul spirit self. Perhaps you need to change the focal point of your life from your personality self to your soul spirit self. This coincides beautifully with Teilhard de Chardin's teaching that the purpose of life is not simply to have an enriched human experience, but rather to start first with the soul spirit and to discern the purpose of the soul spirit guiding your life. This is quite a shift for us, yet one for those who have made it, that has brought greater clarity and greater joy into our lives. And as you make this shift to our soul personality self first, as you put your soul spirit personality self first, so many other questions will be answered, opening up for you more avenues of your spiritual awareness. Let me suggest the following questions and statements that might help better explain this newer teaching to us. First, the questions. Have you ever asked yourself, why do you have certain things in life that you've always wanted to do? Why is there something within you that you've always wanted to do? I call these things proclivities in life. Why do you just want to do certain things? Well, concerning other things, you're just not interested. For example, let's just say you've always wanted to be a veterinarian, or you've always wanted to teach school, or perhaps you just always wanted to know why things work. Or maybe you just like to take things apart, then put them back together again. Or maybe you've always liked animals or the sea or digging in the dirt. Where did these things come from? Where did these things come from that you've always had? You may say, well, I don't know where they come from. I don't know where they came from. They were just always there. That's the point. That's the point. Who or what put them there? Who or what implanted your proclivities into you? Proclivities that you've always had. Was it perhaps your soul spirit that did the initial direction of your personality self and is now helping it to manifest? It just makes you stop and think. Perhaps my personality self has had a previous direction from my soul spirit self. Perhaps my personality self has had a previous direction from my soul spirit self. Or have you ever considered the following three experiences? First, you just had an experience of a thought that just came to you, and you said, well, it just came out of the blue. Did you ever wonder what the blue is? Or where the blue is? Could the blue be your soul spirit guiding your personality self? Or perhaps maybe you've said something like, I had a good talk with myself. Now, did you ever ask yourself, who did the talking? And who did the listening? These are important hints for us to understand who is in charge. Or perhaps you've said, I can't believe this is happening to me. Who's the I that can't believe it's happening? And who's the me to whom it is happening? What I am suggesting to you is that it is your soul self that is guiding, directing your personality self. And that now the focal point has changed. Your focal point in life is changing from your personality self to your soul spirit self. You are developing a spiritual personality right in your life. Your soul personality is yoking, is pulling together now with your human personality self, with the clarity that it is your soul personality that is clearly in charge. Your soul personality is now yoked to your human personality, and you are now pulling together. In conclusion, I ask that you digest this teaching as the soul self being in charge of the personality self. In next week's teaching, we will begin with the most important question concerning this relationship of the soul self to the personality self. as well as continuing the development of the rest of our 3 soul teams. In the meantime, I ask that you review today's teaching. Review both parts, how you contribute to now creations, by your presence, by your sharing of spirit, and especially how there is a yoking now between your soul self and your personality self. And yes, of course, we will continue to be soul teammates with each other, doing our best for the greater good. Of course we will. Let me now take you into meditation, and indeed what a joy it is to do so. Let's begin as we normally do by just focusing on the breath just for a moment. Let it just settle you. Certainly settle your body and settle your mind. And just put yourself into that nice, wonderful framework of life. Perhaps for many of us, we have just never given it much thought as to, well, how we come together. Or many times we look outside of ourselves. But for us, we have come to look inside. And as we have looked inside, we have found a bounty of inner treasure. Would you just take a moment and just reflect on what a joy it is right now for all of us here to be together in this energy, this wonderful, abundant spiritual energy. Just take a moment to realize how good it is to be with others who deeply share our spiritual principles and values. And would you realize your contribution, just being here right now? You have brought your energy for the greater good of the whole. We are pulling together. I will say to you, we are pulling together. And as we pull together with each other, we realize that we help each of us to pull together with others, our family and friends. So many of you are so delighted with the experiences you are having because we come together. Which then enables you to bring others together in this energy. A beautiful example of this is Kindness Month that we share in our creations. I just encourage you to take the time, just take a moment and extend your loving kindness to someone in your family or a friend. And just understand what you're doing. It's not just a kind act, but rather it's part of a universal energy, stimulating in them as it has in you, the ushering in of the kingdom of God. It's an easy contribution to make to the flow of life, but you have to be intentional in wanting to do so and attentional in doing so. And now that second soul team, it began with your development of a spiritual personality. You began to realize that the foundation of your spiritual personality was your first yoking to the God Spirit. On so many occasions, you went inside and probed and said, yes, yes, I am forever linked to the God Spirit. Would you just take a moment to acknowledge that you are forever linked, yoked, pulling together, an extension of the God Spirit? Have you come to accept this, that this is your first yoking, that you are soul spirit, forever linked with the God Spirit? Have you come to accept this as having a spiritual personality? Quite conscious, quite clear, quite directive. But you have to accept it. In addition to this forever yoking, because we have not left our source, we have a temporary yoking, and that's with our human personality, our body, mind, and emotions. For lifetimes, we allow the personality self to be the boss. For lifetimes. And into this lifetime. We have made the shift into not only identifying that soul spirit, but now allowing it to be directed. Where's the blue? Who's the I that talked to you? These are your experiences. They are the hints. They are the openings that have helped you to understand that your soul spirit is not only yoked to the divine, that it is now pulling together with your human personality. What a switch. You're beginning to know yourself in ways that you've not known before. It's time. It's time to develop a new focal point in your life. And might I say, it's going to make you happier, kinder, nicer, wiser, and everyone else will appreciate you even more. Okay, let's now move back to our breath with a nice smile, a clarity about who we are and what we're doing, a happiness within ourselves that's just going to be manifested today. And as you move back into your breath, just invite you to gently breathe your eyes open. You know the truth when you hear it, and you've just heard it. Makes it easy to say, I am an eternal being of light and love. Thus, only good can come to me, and only good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us, and only good can come from us. Namaste.